morning on this rainy December morning. I was driving to work and there's so much rain. I thought, man, what if this was all snow? It'd be great. I'd like to thank my brother in Christ, Darren, for giving me a heads up about my wheel bearings in my car. I was able to get those fixed and just really appreciate him. I've been reading Isaiah, and to be perfectly frank, it's been slow going. It's been a difficult month, I would say, just with a lot of different things going on, and well, just personal dryness. It's a terrible thing to be in a spiritual desert. But I've been reading Isaiah, and I was running short on time this morning, so I've been listening to someone speak on Isaiah, and I was reminded that God is on the throne, and I'm pulled back and forth about watching the news. You want to know about current events, you want to know what's going on, and yet when you watch the news, there's so much that should not be. It's very disheartening. And so just this past incident of, two incidents. So you have Mr. Penny, who sees this gentleman, and I don't know all the details of why this man was disturbing so many on the subway. But Mr. Penny, a serviceman, steps in, puts him in the head, a chokehold, to subdue him and just take care of the situation so that nobody gets hurt. He doesn't know what's going to go on. He's nervous. He's afraid for people, and so he steps in. And unfortunately, the man passes. I have heard that he was not dead when the police showed up, but that he does pass. And as much as I hate that, and I hate that for him, and I hate that for his family, Mr. Penny is acquitted, and he had no intention of harming the man. He certainly had no intention of killing the man. And so it's a great loss, but it would seem that justice has been served, and a man who accidentally caused another man's death, I know is heartfeltly sorry, but is acquitted in the opinion of the court of the law. However, there's another scenario where there's a gentleman who, for whatever reason, is angry at his healthcare provider. Back pain, whatever mental distress that may have caused. He tracked the man down, the CEO of the healthcare company. Not his doctor, not the pharmaceutical company, not the nurses who may have waited on him so many times, but the CEO of the healthcare provider. And finding him and seeing him and knowing who he was, stepped out from between cars as he passed by, shot him in the back, which means he had all kinds of intention. This is not accidental. To make a very long story short, our left, radical, often democratic, and nearly insane, and cognitively immoral news media, most of them, they're saying that this assassin, this killer, this murderer, is a hero, standing up against big companies. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. And then they actually compare Penny and him. And anyways, it's just terrible. And so I'm reminded in Isaiah 6 that when Isaiah walks into the temple, and maybe he's there to pray, maybe he's there to perform an act of worship in the sacrifices through a burnt offering, or perhaps even a sin offering. But whatever reason he's there, he sees the Lord high and lifted up on the throne. So we are reminded that God is on the throne. And so if God is on the throne, why does all these things happen? Why do we see? And while there is glimmers of hope in a remnant of morality and virtue in patriotic America, there are rivers of immorality and corruption running through every vein, whether that's business, politics, even the church itself. And so why does all these terrible things, these bad things, these corrupt things happen if God is on the throne? And the thing is that God will, as it says in Romans 1, give us up to our sin. If we reject truth, by the very nature of our unrighteous behavior, actions, wickedness, and sin, he will give us up to it. Part of his grace is restraining us from such things. And there will come a time where he will say, fine, if this is what you want, this is what you can have. If this is what you want, this is what you can do. Have at it. Indulge. And you can look at our society and you can see the indulging. You can see it in television shows. You can see it in business. You can see it all over the place. And so I am reminded that God is on the throne. When I see these things in the news, perhaps that bother me, when I see things in the world that bother me. And yet that's very outside of myself. What about me? What about the things that God is giving me over to? Are there things in my life that I indulge in, that I do, that I think? You know, sin in our lives, it touches every aspect of us. It's not like, well, you know, my words are fine and my actions are good, but my heart, my desires are kind of polluted. But the other things, they stay pure. That's not how sin works. And it's not that if you're not, you know, holy and separated in all things, then you're not holy at all. That's not how that works. I've heard the phrase, if the Lord's not Lord of all, he's not Lord at all. Well, I understand the concept. When we can be devoted in one aspect of our lives and not be devoted in another aspect of our lives, but that aspect of life where we are undevoted, where the Lord is not the Lord, where we are not all that we should be, it affects those other parts, and it will infect them and impact them. And so we are challenged with the parts of our lives where perhaps we're not where we should be. And God is giving us over to our sin, to our mindset, to our philosophy, to our own desires. And ultimately, it's always some form of rejection of Him, rejection of His Word, quenching of His Spirit, grieving of His Spirit. I'm reminded that, you know, children they'll just do whatever they want. If you let a child go, he will be an evil child. It is the imposed discipline, that restraining that the parent does for the child, that is part of that parent's favor upon that child. But eventually, you know, the parent will step back and let the child make a mistake. The mistake might hurt them a little, it might hurt them a lot. But that child will have to learn on their own. The parent steps back and in one sense gives them over to the sin that fills their heart and the foolishness that fills their heart. God does the same thing to you and I. But regardless of how we might live, we might think, we might behave, and others might look at us the way we look at others. It's important to remind ourselves that God is on the throne. He's never stepped off. Everything that happens, though it is not caused by him, is allowed. It happens under his reign, his sovereign rule. And so God, he's allowing you to do today perhaps some things. And he's going to allow you to make choices. What choices are you going to make? Are they going to be choices that will honor him? Are they going to be choices that will help others, help yourself, separate us from the world, separate us from sin, separate us from everything that destroys our life? Or will they be the choices that literally take us into the destruction that we so often want to avoid? I pray God would bless you. Drive safe. Have a good day.